Welcome. So let's talk about what happens when you've had a difficult relationship with your mother growing up, and then as an adult, she tries to be a bit more friendly. Maybe she is communicating in some way that she wants a different relationship with you, a better relationship. Maybe she's starting to be a bit nicer. And actually, this can feel really alarming, really confusing, really unsafe for you. And let me just talk briefly about the mother wound. So, the mother wound is essentially the gap between what you needed from your mother as a child and what you got from her, what she was able to offer you. And it's also the internalization of your mother's unprocessed trauma. So, all of the stuff that she really wasn't able to manage herself from her own childhood, all of the ways in which she wasn't quite able to make sense of her own emotions or relate in a close way, create a kind of trusting bond with you, that all of that will have impacted her relationship with you, and that also creates a mother wound. So that's what, when I refer to mother wound, that's what I'm meaning in this video. So when you've experienced a mother wound as a child, it can be easy for people to assume that if she starts being more kind of pleasant and making more of an effort, that you will just, or you could or should just kind of respond to that and, start kind of playing happy families, if you like. But actually, let's think about what is really going on here. Since you were born, in fact, before you were born, actually, kind of even when you were just in utero, you were experiencing an exchange with your mother, and there was a dynamic being created, a relationship being established. And then when you were a baby, before you could even speak, in fact, that's a really important time for how the dynamic was formed. There would have been this dance being kind of created between you and your mother. And really the dance would have been centered around how much she could accept you and how much she could meet your needs. And you would have been then responding to that. And so that dynamic, that kind of develops essentially as you go through the different stages of childhood. And this can get, complex. I mean, this is something I can talk about in a different video, but there are all sorts of things happening here. So, for example, if your mother experienced a real disruption in her emotional care with her own parents at, say, the age of 7, for example, then it's quite possible that when you turn 7, she would have been unconsciously triggered, and that could cause a disruption. Likewise, with adolescents, often more narcissistic mothers or mothers who are really viewing their children, and often most specifically their daughters, as a kind of extension of themselves, they can get really triggered when their daughter reaches adolescence, for example, and has a lot of kind of opportunities in front of her, a symbol of youth, a symbol of all of the kind of lovely things in life that she maybe feels she wasn't able to make the most of in her own life. And so that can be really triggering. That can create different levels of toxicity in the relationship and so on. So I suppose what I'm trying to describe here is that your reaction to your mother now, whether you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, your reaction to her now is built and based on all of these moments that you've had with her over the decades. Just because she tries to offer you a hug or wants to be supportive in some way does not mean that your nervous system is suddenly going to feel safe with her. And that's okay. It's perfectly understandable, and it makes complete sense that you're not going to feel able to trust her and to really trust the kind of positive feelings or experiences she's maybe trying to offer you. And I suppose it's just worth validating that, because even if she's apologised, it may be that you've had a discourse with your mother about how she treated you, how your childhood felt, and maybe she owned it, maybe she apologised, maybe she didn't, but maybe she did. And But even so, an apology is really not going to be enough for your nervous system to erase all of that data. So we're constantly, our nervous system and that kind of fight or flight part of our brain, that our monkey brain, if you like, is always scanning from day one for to really make meaning of our environment and our experiences and the people in our life, and to really create patterns so that it makes life a little bit more predictable, makes life feel a bit less chaotic. So your brain and your nervous system would have been collecting lots of data on your mother from the very beginning. And of course, that data is particularly potent, it has a particularly strong effect and it really stays with us. So just because she's maybe switched things up in recent years doesn't mean that you're going to be able to accept that or feel safe with her or be able to trust it, especially if in the past you've maybe experienced her kind of being punitive, or so maybe you would have been having a conversation with her and it seemed fine, and then she would suddenly bring out a criticism or suddenly say something that was attacking or abusive, and you maybe got used to a relationship with her which was unpredictable, a relationship in which essentially you needed to be on guard, you needed to be on high alert, you were constantly scanning for what she was doing, maybe constantly looking at her facial expressions, constantly scanning her tone of voice, trying to work out what she was meaning, what she was really thinking and feeling, what might be happening next. If you have got used to that experience of being with your mother, then it's absolutely reasonable that you can't accept her hugs, or her metaphorical hugs, if you like. And so often I'm here kind of talking about a problem and then thinking about a solution, but look, I'm not here to talk your nervous system out of its response and its reaction, because I have no doubt that it will make complete sense. In terms of the mother wound journey, I normally focus on helping people resolve the mother wound within themselves, and therefore kind of resolve the impact it's having on their self-worth, their confidence, their relationships. But you might be, so I suppose my focus is not really so much on altering the relationship itself. You might be thinking that you do want an improved relationship with her, which is absolutely available. But I suppose I just would suggest to trust yourself, trust your gut instinct, trust where you're at, trust your own nervous system, and just notice it. You don't need to do anything as a result of it, but just notice how you're feeling when you're around her. Just kind of notice that in the same way we ought to be noticing how we feel around anybody. Pay attention, see what it's trying to tell you, and that, as I say, that doesn't mean that you have to follow it. That doesn't mean that you can't have a relationship with her, but just notice what it is that your nervous system is trying to tell you and go from there. You just use it as data. Okay, hopefully that has been helpful for you. If you want more on the mother wound, do let me know in the comments. Take care.